Hello and welcome to the Ireland on the Fly podcast, covering the people and places about fly fishing in Ireland. Without doubt, these are extraordinary times we're living in, and while we don't know what the future holds, I do know it's our passions and hobbies, such as fly fishing, that can help keep us sane. If you're able to get out fishing safely and avoiding close contact with people, it's a welcome relief, so do make sure to get your time in. But if you're not able to or don't feel safe doing so, then I do hope listening to this and other podcasts helps bring you to that world of fish and fly fishing that we love so much. Don't neglect it. Do keep up to date with important information, but do also switch off and plug out from it all from time to time. Now more than ever we need nature, the outdoors, and a return to what we hold most dear. So back to this week's episode. It's all about streamer fishing and how and why you should be trying it, and not just when the river is in flood. Keith McDonnell, aka fluffchucker.com, is an advanced fly casting instructor based in Dublin, who's now committed almost completely to the pursuit of big trout with streamers. And I asked Keith how his passion for this method came about.
I suppose it was going to South America 2003, and I went to this place, Junín de los Andes, in Argentina, and the guide I had was really into the streamer thing. Now, at that time, there would have been large woolly buggers and Mickey fins and these kind of patterns. But I hadn't seen anything like it before, and the reaction of the fish was just fantastic. And the approach to it was a teeny 200 fast sinking line and hit the banks of the river and pull the fly away, strip it away, and the fish would chase it and wallop it, and it was just brilliant. So when I took it home, I found very quickly that it worked. And I've been doing it ever since. But in the meantime, a friend of mine, McDonnell, had got this book, Modern Streamers for Trophy Trout, which was Kelly Galloup. I guess he's a really well-known guy in the States, and he's becoming more well-known in Europe these days. He's a great guy, really outspoken, opinionated, got strong thoughts on fishing and their behavior and that sort of thing. And his approach to it was just, it really made sense to me, having seen this stuff. So it's been evolving. The Americans have led the way, really, but it works equally well here.
And is it relatively new? Obviously, when you came back from your trip, like literally nobody had been doing it over here. Like, is it starting to cotton on a little bit? Is it? It's a bit like I kind of.
I'm not sure that there was nobody, but there was very few people, maybe a handful of people, and I think there's probably still only a handful of people that are really as silly about it as I am. I mean, I'd spend the whole season doing it.
Oh, would you? To the exclusion of wet fly, dry fly, nymphing, anything like that?
Well, I mean, last season I did quite a bit of dry fly fishing, but ordinarily I wouldn't have. I'd have stuck to the streamer all season long, with the belief that I hold that once a fish gets over a certain size, he's going to feed predominantly on larger items, and to get that response, or to move that fish, you've got to give him something, according to that sort of size range of the food base.
And is it a case of that you'll catch less fish but bigger ones?
Yeah, definitely. As you go up in size, it's a law of diminishing returns. There's no hard and fast rules. I mean, some days in a good flood, you can turn every fish in the pool with the biggest fly you have, and I'm talking about, like, the biggest fly that I use now would be 6 inches long. Most of them would be in the kind of 3, 4, 5 inch range. But if you go down to the 3 inch range, then you can meet the kind of trout that we're all used to seeing in Irish rivers. The 10, 12 inch fish will take it.
Does it take a different kind of mindset or attitude nearly to get up to the 4, 5, 6 inch size flies to be cast?
Yeah, it does. It's just having absolute confidence in it. and it just builds up over time. I mean, if I was to advise somebody starting out, would be to go for a smaller streamer, a standard kind of size 2 or size 4, uh, woolly bugger, conehead woolly bugger, those sort of things. And because you will meet numbers of fish. Um, Now, it doesn't work every day. It's like anything in fishing, but um, on its day, you will meet an awful lot more fish. Whereas as you go up in size, you're less likely to encounter fish, but the fish you do encounter, as a general rule, will be bigger.
I was always led to believe, it's really kind of for when the river's high, it's coming off a flood. Um, y- you know, like take this time of year, early
Yeah,
season.
there's no doubt that a flood is when I really get excited. But it really depends on the water. There's some pools that only fish in lower water. The type of streamer fishing that I enjoy is getting the reaction from the fish, seeing the fish react to it. Whereas earlier in the season, I think fish are more lethargic. There's less of an active food base in lower water temperatures. So you've got to fish slower, deeper, possibly. Um, so it's not as visual. Whereas the visual aspect to it is the thing I enjoy, because most people think it's that fishing with big streamers is heavily weighted things that are dredging the bottom, and there's a place for that. But the the fun bit for me is um, casting to where I think the fish is and getting that reaction and seeing it happen. Because sometimes they'll come across the pool after it. You see them behave completely differently than you would with any other fly fishing method.
Like you said, it's nearly taken over in terms of your fishing style, like to the exclusion of everything else. Like
It has. I mean, I used to fish with a double-handed rod and swing flies for salmon, and I just discovered that it wasn't really my thing. I mean, I spent a lot of time with the casting, and I love the casting with the two-handed rod, but um, I much prefer to um, be actively working the fly, and really, I like to keep on the move and fish quickly, and it just suits me.
Yeah, so talk to me, for anybody listening that's thinking of having a go at it, not very experienced at it, maybe. You come to a river. Is it really kind of you're searching the water? So don't be hanging around. Cast,
Yeah,
move.
definitely. I mean, there's no rules to say don't stand there if you find a spot that looks fishy. But I give it a couple of casts and keep going. Generally, it hits the water, and within a strip or two, you get a reaction, or he's not there, not prepared to play ball.
Also, is it a bit like certain speeds will work some days, so you just gotta, there's no hard and fast rule. You gotta change it up if you're having no luck with the fast
Yeah,
tripping. You slow it
yeah,
down.
definitely. I mean, we were talking about spring. I think if you're going to look at it in cold water, where it seems to change is around 10, 12 degrees in the water temperature, where they're prepared to chase, to move for the fly. Prior to that, you really need to slow it down, and it's more as if you're feeding the fish rather than trying to get him to chase it.
So it's just a case of putting in the time, the hours, being prepared to have kind of
Yeah, it
empty
is.
days, blank days,
Yeah,
but then when you
you've
hit it,
you've 100%. You've got to be prepared to take the bad days, because there will be plenty of them. But I mean, the reward to me is huge. I think they're absolutely stunning creatures. A really big trout. When you get up over 20 inches in length, so you're going into the 3, 5 up pounds range. They're amazing looking with the hooked jaw, and it's really worth it.
is it similar then to salmon fishing in the sense of that the people would argue that the type of fly doesn't matter? Obviously, the size would, but does it really matter whether it's woolly bugger or?
It's a confidence thing completely. I mean, if my box got low and I didn't have one or two particular patterns, I'd feel at a loss, and I probably wouldn't achieve it as much. And that's just the way it is. Um, it's important from your own headspace to have the right fly that feels right and looks good to you in the water.
What's your go-to one?
So there's a couple, and they vary basically. I mean, they're all essentially overgrown woolly buggers, so they're articulated flies. They generally have two hooks, and they vary according to the small amount of weight you put in the front. The weight is simply to get it through the surface film as quickly as possible, because as I was saying, you're expecting the reaction pretty quick. But the heads, wool heads or deer hair heads, I'm a big fan of because of that push of water and the way it stops the fly, and the tail kicks once the fly stops. And then one that's really effective is I don't know whether you're familiar with the fish skulls. They're small little kind of brassy colored heads that you put eyes onto. They've got a bit of weight in the front, and you get this kind of up and down serpentine action from them in the water.
And where's is the Boyne your local river, Keith?
Yeah, the Boyne, the Liffey. I mean, I've got the Owen Dodder, which flows into the Dodder just beside my house. So I fish the Dodder a little bit, but I tend to go further afield. I fish all over the country, and yeah, I like the Boyne, I like the Liffey, there's a few others.
Well, it sounds brilliant. Like, and it's definitely, do you know what? This time of year, early season, is a great time to try for people, isn't it? In terms of the streamers, to have a go. You might think, oh, the river's too high, or
Yeah, once the water temperature comes up a bit, it becomes a bit easier. Um, if you wanted to go out and catch numbers of fish, I would guess nymphing is more effective early season. But I'm not a massive fan of nymphing myself. But um, it would certainly be, my advice if you were going to go and try it now would be to start with a smaller fly. At least you've got some confidence in the fact that it will work on the general trout population, rather than trying to go straight for that really big fish, because you're up against it anyway. But once the water starts to warm up and you've caught a couple of fish with the standard size flies, then you can move up. It's important to say with those bigger flies that you need to focus on casting. You need to be able to double haul and generate line speed in order to carry the flies, and you need to have a short leader, no longer than 5 feet, of quite heavy mono or fluoro. I mean, I wouldn't go below 12 pounds. 15 to 20 pounds wouldn't be an issue. The flies take about 40 minutes on average to tie those big ones, so you don't want to be losing them on the far bank.
and generally stick with an intermediate, is it?
It's really up to the individual. I like the intermediate. My friend Kieran O'Kelly, who, I mean, he fishes so many days of the year. I'm awful jealous. He's a great streamer angler. He's got fish up to 9 pounds. He lives up in Kells. He fishes floating line. He likes a floating line, and he fishes a really big. I don't know whether you've seen those game changer flies. They've got a number of sections. They're quite a big profile in the water. He's good success with them, but with a floating line. So, not that it wouldn't work. I really like the fact that a small bit of weight in the fly and the line means that you're getting through the surface film and fishing immediately as soon as the gear touches the water.
And upstream, and then stripping it back, is it?
Yeah, so either upstream or across is best. So if you take that sort of 90-degree angle anywhere in that zone, something that puts an awful lot of people off doing it is they try it once or twice and the gear isn't working for them, and they say this is hardship, it's too much like hard work, and knock it on the head. Whereas if you get it set up right with the short leader, and you don't want too much weight in the fly, not too heavy line, and you should be able to fish it easily enough. The Suir is a fantastic streamer river. I was lucky a number of years ago to have access to it, and we floated from Clonmel in a boat a number of times and got some serious trout on it, and some of the fish that we moved were just fantastic.
Oh, there's absolute lunkers in there, like there's no doubt about it. Like it's incredible head of fish in it, like
serious fish.
But yeah, actually, just from chatting to you this evening, I hope anybody that's listened to it as well can learn from it. They haven't started it, but if they have, to go back again, because I'm going to do it now. From what you're saying, is I'm going to go intermediate, bit of a lighter setup, and look, it's like you said, it's like any kind of fishing. It has to be enjoyable first and foremost. If it's too much work, there's something
absolutely
wrong,
yeah.
Rethink your tactics.
A heavy short leader, you just get less of a hinging effect with the you get that nasty kick you get with heavily weighted flies. Just you want to eliminate all of that. And if anybody has any questions about it, they're welcome to get in touch, through my website or
fluffchucker.com,
Facebook or any of that. Yeah.
For anybody listening, go to Keith's website. There's an incredible gallery of fish, pictures of fish. If you're unconvinced of the value of streamer fishing, check out the gallery on fluffchucker.com, and you will be a convert to it. But like I said, you got to put in the hours, you got to put in the days, and be prepared to slog it out. And then when you hit the sweet spot, it's all the sweeter, as you said. Well, Keith, listen, thanks a million for taking the call. It's been absolutely brilliant talking to you. I'm gonna
no problem.
Get out. I'm gonna get out again, and I'm gonna take your advice. And you never know. Fingers crossed. We'll do it. And look, we'll catch up again. And if there's any news of great fishing, keep us posted.
I'll let you know. Thanks a million, Darren.
My thanks to Keith McDonnell of fluffchucker.com for joining me on the show. I'll be back next week with another episode of Ireland on the Fly. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. You can also keep up to date on IrelandOnTheFly.com, as well as on Instagram at IrelandOnTheFly. In the meantime, do stay safe, and thanks for listening.